Hey guys, it's Mal here once again with the shocking revelation that Replica Alberons are good, and they are good when combined with Volcanic Fissure, and they are good when combined with Vengeant Cascade. Mind-blowing, I know, right? Anyway, this is kind of a build I wanted to incorporate into this league. I wanted to give a second shot at Volcanic Fissure because it was really good last league and pretty comfortably build the league, I'd say. Replica Alberons are as cheap as they've pretty much ever been, so I bought them for 6 divines, and they have always been a very powerful item to make very powerful poison or even just chaos hit builds with. So they are a boot that give you a lot of extra chaos damage for stacking strength, and I decided to just have a bit of a win on a character for Crucible League with Volcanic Fissure. Of course, got to use Vengeant Cascade because it basically doubles the output of skills like this, and then running Pathfinder, Poison, Replica Alberons, all this jazz. And surprise, surprise, it's probably going to be build of the league. It's going to be really tough to beat this thing in the end because this type of playstyle gives you a lot of life gain on hit, which is a lot of sustain. It's a lot of damage for not having to spec that much damage. Essentially, a lot of our build is just running around the tree, getting strength and a bit of utility and stuff, and that allows you to build pretty heavily into defense. So the character has a lot of armor, a lot of evasion, and some damage reduction to go with it as well. Almost capped spell suppress, and all that combined does give us a pretty well-rounded character. The issue is that Crucible can still actually kill you, so that's fun. Basically, this character did take on all content in the game, all Ubers, and farmed a lot of the Ubers, and wave 30 Simulacrum. But yeah, a fully charged Crucible can still like one-shot you, and that's just great, isn't it? Either way, it was still, for the most part, pretty good. Like, rarely died to the Crucibles, especially, if I was mobile enough and moved around and all that, and, actually played the game. But I'd still expect to be able to tank it quite a bit more comfortably. Either way, I'm not even sure what I built here was very correct. It took me quite a long time to look at the passive tree for optimizations and stuff, because it was a very long passive tree just to travel to Resolute Technique and pick up all the strength nodes and try and maintain some level of life and get poison on hit from my gear and stuff. But it did turn into a pretty successful build. I'm just pretty sure there's going to be a much better way of doing it all. So wave 30 here is what's happening. I went all the way through a Simulacrum first try to clear all wave 30, all 30 waves. Died a couple times and then died once on this actual wave as well. So it's still going to be kind of up to a bit of RNG as to what you get on your Simulacrum. Particularly tough waves could still absolutely slap you down, or be resistant enough to your damage that they can slap you down. But for Simulacrum, you really kind of want to be like armor and evasion. You want to be pretty mobile, really good sustain, typically ailment immune. My character is unfortunately not quite ailment immune. He is 84% chance to avoid ailments, so close but not quite there. But all of that comes together with, especially with good damage as well, to become a Simulacrum viable character. I'd say I could comfortably farm Simulacrums on this character, but it's still pretty tedious, and still, I don't blast it apart, I don't think. I mean, I am doing 4 or 5 rewards every wave because Volcanic Fissure is very strong for this shit. Volcanic Fissure is also very strong for the earlier waves. Press that and it's probably going to clear an entire zone by itself a lot of the time. But ultimately, it was just a really nice boss fighting character as well. The issue, I suppose, is kind of ramp, a little bit of ramp anyway, as with these poison builds it typically is. Outside of that, there's no real downside to it. The strength of Volcanic Fissure compared to Molten Strike is that you can attack from range, as I've mentioned in the past. So I played a Molten Strike character this league as well, and it's great, but you are very melee, whereas with this, it's basically a similar outcome, but you can attack before a boss is even up, so you don't have to, you can pre-fire, you don't have to rely on the thing being there. But more importantly, you can sit back from wherever you want to be and attack, and still get like maximum output. It was actually rarely an issue with this character anyway, because it was tanky enough to be up in the grill of most things, be able to like take damage, and you get a lot of your sustain from life gain on hit, and be able to just sit there and absorb anything that bosses have to put out. But it's still convenient to be able to attack from like any angle. So here you go, just a slight further away from Maven. That's very nice, as opposed to having to wait to be directly on top of the boss again. So did plenty of Mavens, did like 3 deathless Ubicirises in a row. We were pretty damn good at Ubiciris in the end. Like I said, just a bit of ramp is the only real issue. Pretty good at all of these invites, just got to make sure you dodge a few key attacks here or there, because definitely not one-shot immune, but with a lot of armor, with a lot of evasion and the rat playstyle, it's fairly reliable to avoid a lot of this damage. Yeah, if you can get it like another 1,000 life or some shit, maybe a bit of other damage reduction, with the life gain on hit that we have, it's damn near going to be unkillable. On top of that, you can see that I am pressing Berserk quite often as well. That's because I'm using the Combs Spirit, I think they're called, gloves, with a little bit of life regen, so we get rage constantly up, and I've also got the Axe Mastery for rage, so that is actually a very large portion of why a lot of these boss fights are pretty smooth. You can start out with 50 rage to begin with, you can press Berserk like maybe half the time or some shit, and Berserk has a huge extra defensive multiplier to it for less damage taken, as well as giving you speed and damage. So pressing Berserk kind of like whenever you need to during really tough moments or at the very start of a fight is pretty damn important in going through a lot of these endgame fights without too much issue. So that was one of the good reasons for the character doing what it did, but overall, just a very strong combo of items: Replica Alberons, Vengeance Cascade, and of course, Volcanic Fissure, which I think is still one of the most underrated skills out there. And yeah, let me just go ahead and show you how I built the character. So here's a character level 94, finding the path to the gym, or a Pathfinder, with strength stacking. That's what happened. Hit level 94 and cleared all content by like 93, 92, whatever. Pretty decent for mapping. It's just a bit annoying having like that poison ramp during some stuff, but you kind of get used to it, and it's still not my favorite playstyle, because Prolift doesn't seem too good on this one, and you do kind of typically, as a poison Pathfinder character, enjoy the Prolift nodes, whereas we don't really have big individual poisons. It's lots of little ones. So the clear honestly didn't feel terrific, but it was like, solid and good enough for sure. So we are built around these boots. They've been notoriously expensive and powerful ever since they came out, and then got their drop rate nerfed. But this is the first league since then that they've been kind of accessible enough that I've decided I can give them another shot. And 1 to 80 chaos damage to attacks per 80 strength. Very powerful damage gain. You could do a similar build if you, like for poison stuff, if you just went Covenant instead, stacked chaos that way, but then you wouldn't have a chest and you have to do some other finessing. But it's still very much doable, I would say. But yeah, a lot of strength. Stack a bunch of strength and get a bunch of chaos, and then make sure you poison, get some poison stuff. Easy does it. Combine it with something like a Volcanic Fissure, which has a lot of extra projectiles, which then get doubled by your friend Vengeance Cascade, and yeah, very good stuff. I played Volcanic Fissure without Vengeance Cascade last league, still very, very insane, but this, of course, makes it better. As you can tell, you attack, balls bounce, or rather, let's take out multi-strike. You attack, balls bounce a second time. It's not quite as powerful as Molten Strike, it feels to me, the interaction, because Molten Strike, like, hits and then bounces back in on itself. This kind of just bounces a second time, more or less on the spot. So I don't think it's going to have as good overlap on certain fights, but for the most part, it was still good enough overlap on anything that it needed to be on. So Volcanic Fissure is the main delivery tool. Plenty of extra projectiles there. This is a anomalous version, so got an additional projectile. I then tampered this thing to become 2120 Val, which honestly doesn't really make a difference as long as you know, for maximum output it's just an anomalous version, turns into Val. And even Val, it's not that mandatory. It's decent, but it's not a button that really carries you. I don't think I pretty much pressed it during any boss fights. It's just a bit of extra clear, like during Abyss and maybe Breach and stuff like that. So it does feel good in that regard. So besides that, it's basically just regular gear, I'd say, strength stack and all that. I went with a Crucible tree, so I just picked up this axe that I went just maximum speed on, picked up this axe that just had this tree. So for, I don't know, no money at all, like 20C or some shit. Bit of stats, attack speed. It has speed modifier and then a min, frenzy, and endurance. So the key thing here was just basically attack speed. Wanted to get some more stats, but this is what we managed. And then I used a Harvest Chaos reroll after turning it into an Elder Axe until I got, like, basically all I was looking for was 59 damage over time multi. Happened to also hit damage over time as a suffix, and then just kept that. But you can do some other crafts from the crafting bench, like chaos damage. You can get flat chaos as a modifier here. You can get you know, T1 attack speed, obviously. There's strength rolls. So it can be better, but honestly, it's about as good as it needs to be, and I didn't want to invest more into it. So that's all it took. Very fast weapon. We then picked up a shield that had some good stuff. So I looked through a lot of shields, and there's a lot out there with just like strength and stuff. I went with one that had 2 different strength rolls and then also a bunch of extra block. So my initial plan was to also build capped block into this character, and I did do that. But it took a few too many points that just didn't feel like they were doing much, since I already had a lot of armor and decent amount of evasion. So you can currently see my setup with Malevolence, but for the most part I pretty much always was running Grace. So Grace, armor, Defiance, sorry, and with flasks and everything up, that's what we're dealing with defense wise. So then block on top of that, like I've still got a decent bit of block, 56, and I had 75. It didn't really feel like it was doing that much more at that point. Like, you'd still have Crucible monsters getting through that shit and trying to one-shot you either way. So I don't know. I uninvested in a bit of block, but my shield still has a bunch because of this node, and then having it on the shield itself. So the shield, very basic, just rolled it with strength essences, and it's got block and a bit of ailment avoid. Yeah, but it's also a strength synthesized implicit. So I picked up the synthesized 6% base and then slammed it together with another tree, and this is the resulting outcome, and it's the one I was going to keep. We then have 2 additional proj on a hat, otherwise just strength and stuff. Grabbed a ring with implicit life gain on hit, rolled it with strength until some resists happened, really needed resists. Picked up a Dodra's Damning that has some strength implicit, a bit of determination as well. A lot of corrupted ones out there, but we essentially needed an extra curse in the build somewhere, so this was an elegant enough solution without having to path all the way up into the tree, because we do use 2 curses, one in the form of Temporal Chains on hit from Comb Spirit, and one in the form of a self-cast Despair. So Comb Spirit, Temp Chains on hit, plenty of those out there as well. This is the reason we have Rage and Rage Regeneration and stuff, so you can see basically always going to be at 50 unless you press Berserk, and then it gives you quite a lot of a buff for quite a lot of time. As soon as it goes away, you then start to slowly regen it again. But we've also got Rage Regen from attacking as an axe base. But this is just my life regen getting converted, and a lot of my life regen is actually coming from this minor pantheon that I just upgraded, because without that I actually don't have very much regen at all. So just when we stand still and when we attack, we can get decent bits, and you know, go into a boss fight raged out of our minds. Otherwise, strength implicit there, and strength implicit there, and just roll strength essences till you get something good. And then I picked up a chest that had hybrid armor evasion, rolled it with strength essences until something, once again, hit suppress. Some armor evasion was the goal, and since there's no life on this chest, we can then pick up the 15% life mastery, which is pretty damn good on this build because I have very little life and lots of flat life from the strength side of things. So the passive tree, like I said, it was kind of a bit confusing because I went all over the place and it didn't feel very good traveling or very efficient, but this is how it ended up, and it was good enough. So we have a inertia that converts all of this dex into strength. Picked up some of this charisma action. These nodes are basically carrying our life gain on hit, so 10 life gain on hit, but then 15% chance for that 200, and attack often enough, have enough balls out there, and that's going to be damn near immunity to damage. Some poison on hit that we really need, some suppress, 2 jewels that look basically exactly the same, a little bit of poison on hit with some attack speed. Then got this over here that just has strength, some attack speed, and then 1 node that I can use, which is attack speed with some mana leech. But yeah, pretty basic stuff there. 1 megalomaniac that just had a bit of suppress and ailment avoid, which didn't actually get me to ailment avoid cap in the end, but whatever. And then feast of flesh for a bit of leech and life gain on hit once again. We got a lethal pride over here that I searched up that just has some strength, 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 strength. That's all it does, bit of strength. The axe mastery, like I said, bit of reserve mastery over here, and that element void all the way up there, resolute technique, and a split personality that does a bit of strength, bit of life. Not a great use of it, but it is something. Would have been better to have one that was strength int, just so I didn't have to spec this bullshit int node, but I really needed to. But those are very expensive. And that is basically the tree. So the Pathfinder Sensei that I took, lots of good chunky wither action here. We've actually got the mastery there that gives us 5% chance to have 15, so it's probably always going to have 15 on the enemy. The poison prolif, and then I just took utility shit, so slightly better flasks, and then also flask regen during fights. Of course, you can go into OP as fuck, like life flask sustain stuff, but this build didn't really need it, and I didn't really want to do it. So that's where we're at. Or you could have gone 50% chance to avoid using, but I don't know. I felt like this would be more reliable during boss fights, and that's what I took. So that's the character. Not supremely hard to put together, and it's going to probably vary from case to case as you build it for strength stack and all that. But that's kind of the base, you know. Going to be a no-brainer that it's going to win. Just a very strong boot and very strong setup to play with. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the little process here and the build. It's probably going to be build of the league. It's going to be very tough to beat this one because a lot of powerful interactions happening here. But we'll see if we can randomly pull another one out of a hat. I'm not really like making characters to be the best possible character ever, because if I was doing that, it'd be pretty easy to just start combining really good stuff. I'm usually just doing stuff that, you know, I feel like playing or looks interesting, Crucible, new stuff, skills that I haven't played in a while, and if it turns out to be build a league or some shit, yay for us. For the most part though, just doing stuff that I want to do for the sake of having not done it in a while and doing something a bit different. So, yep. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.